Welcome to Open Talk, episode number 9. It's Thursday, May 7th, and what a crazy world it is at the moment. I don't know if you're in the stages I'm in or what stage you're in. I've gone through stages of being, oh my God, the world is doomed, to, oh my God, there's a new episode of something on Netflix, and this is fabulous. I know the weather definitely changes my mood, and knowing that snow is coming possibly for east here is crazy. But this week I'm going to do something a tiny bit different. I'm not kind of going to go into these prepared questions and like that. I'm going to have a really open talk with my guests because they're fabulous, and I have 2 guests tonight, and I'm not going to delay anymore. I'm going to jump right in and say hello. So please activate your cameras and mics, and I'm going to thank and welcome Gail and Esteban for joining us tonight. Guys, hello. How are you?
How you doing? Good. Good.
Hello, Travis. It's a really pleasure to be here and to everybody that is studying in.
Such a pleasure to have you guys. And I want to welcome Gail Mooney and Esteban Toro to Open Talk. And first, Gail, where are you Zooming from?
Zooming from Brookside, New Jersey, about 38 miles west of Manhattan.
And how about you, Esteban?
I'm tuning from Bogota, Colombia. So it's a little bit far from you guys, but it's coming from her.
It's right next door. So that's fabulous.
Yeah.
So how are you guys doing this week? What's your level? Where are you at emotionally, mentally? Where are you at?
Well,
We'll start with you. Yeah, Gail, go ahead.
Gail, please.
It's been a good week because I've had, I need something to do. I need something to look forward to. I need hope, and before that, I couldn't even focus, It was like, there were good days and bad days, but I had no motivation, and that just isn't like me. So yeah. How about you, Esteban?
Well, I've been feeling good. I've been trying to just follow my instinct in the sense that I just, it's like, especially about my schedule. It's like I'm going to bed at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm waking up at 11 a.m. some days, and then other days I just go like at 10 p.m. to the bed, and then I wake up at 2, 3 a.m. But it's like I don't suffer about this anymore. It's like I just deal with it, and I just start doing something. Maybe and then I go just online in some social media, and my friends are just there, and we make video calls, and we laugh, and it's like I just go with it, and I'm trying to remain positive. I'm trying to stay positive. Yes.
Yeah.
Have you guys been suffering from the strange dream syndrome that a lot of people are having?
Oh yeah, I usually never dream, and I've been having some wild ones. Yeah.
I definitely have had dreams. Like even this morning, I could have sworn my brother was yelling, and I woke up and I was sure he was in the house, and he wasn't. And I'm like, oh, and I convinced myself that someone was there, and it was bizarre. I find myself going to sleep earlier. I'm a night person. Like I don't go to sleep before 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm going to sleep at like 12. I'm waking up at 6:30 in the morning. I'm like, what is going on? I'm a morning person.
Yeah, I know.
Eating birds. I bought a bird feeder. I'm like, what is going on with me?
And I'm up at 5 a.m. and I don't even set my alarm. I mean, that's just me, but I like my time in the morning, it's like my time.
So I want to talk to each of you, and I'm going to go one by one. I'm going to start with you, Gail, and I'm going to share some photos and stuff like that. But first, before I start sharing some photos that you sent me, where did the passion for it come from? What was your first camera? Who was your mentor? How did it begin for you? What was the inception, the seed for it?
Yeah, I'm a little unique in that way, in that I really didn't get into photography until I decided that it was a means to an end. I was studying architecture in Syracuse University, and it was, during Kent State, which was just the other day. Yeah. And, it was like a traumatic time. They closed the school down, yada, yada, yada. I never went back, and I left the country for the first time in my life. It was intended to be 3 months. It actually went a year. I intended to go to Europe. I ended up in Afghanistan and came back. Wow. And I hitchhiked the whole way. I shouldn't probably be alive, but it made me realize that I wanted that lifestyle, and not just to travel, but I was curious about everything, lifestyles, cultures. And so I thought, what could I do to give me access to that lifestyle. And I said, I'll be a photographer.
Wow.
So that's kind of how it started.
Do you remember your first camera?
Well, the first shot I remember taking was the Beatles off the TV screen, and that was with my father's Instamatic. But my first real camera was a Nikon FTN, you know, the photomic finder.
Yeah.
I still have it, you know,
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
one lens, and that was that, you know, 50mm lens, and that's when I started taking pictures.
Yeah. Was there a certain a mentor for you, or where did the, you know, that, when did you know, like, this is it for me?
Yeah. Well, when I came back, I realized I was serious. That's when I went to Brooks, and that, you know, that was hard for me because I was a real free spirit, and this was very technical. It was very technical back then, but I knew I had to learn that. It was also the first time I experienced being in almost an entire male environment, you know, so that really changed my life. And will lead up to the end, you know,
Yeah.
so far. And so I met my husband there, and the first thing we did was we assisted different photographers, and then we had the best mentor ever, and that was a man called Adrian Taylor, and he was the art director of Travel and Leisure magazine at the time. But first we did, if you're going to go through are you going to do the pictures?
As we get there, yeah, I'm listening to you.
I'm sorry, I don't know what people see and what they don't. But he was perfect. You know, he was the kind of guy, he would take, he took a risk, let's face it, you know. And we began our careers as a team, Kelly and Mooney. And we traveled all kinds of places. And I don't really know how we landed the job, other than, you know, when we got married after we had been together for 4 years, we opted, instead of taking a honeymoon, we went to the British Isles and took pictures and built a portfolio. And that's when we went to see Adrian Taylor, and he gave us a double page spread in Travel and Leisure. So that was just like, I don't know, meant to be, you know. But he was extremely encouraging. And the more he encouraged me, the harder I tried, and the crazier I got with the ideas, because we had full reign. And he you know, he loved that, and I loved that. So
When were you at Brooks?
I entered Brooks in 73 and left in almost 76. It was December 75.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and then we moved back from California. Tom was from Pennsylvania originally. I was born in Chicago, but I was living in New Jersey. So, you know, we moved back to the New York area, and a terrible time. I mean, you know, Look magazine had gone under, Life had gone under the first time. And what did I want to do? I wanted to be a travel photographer, but you know, quickly I went to see, I was studying or apprenticing with a still life beauty guy, assisting. And I built a portfolio like that. And I went to see Jay Mizell down in the Bowery. And he looked at my work, and it was like, you know, perfectly executed and all that. But my heart wasn't in it. He pretty much threw it at me, and he said, "This isn't what you want to do, is it?" And I said, "No, not really. But, you know, everybody tells me I have to do this. The magazines are dead and da 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 da." And he looked at me, and I told him I wanted to travel. And he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 25. And he looked at me and he said, "And you're already making compromises?" And that was like, boom. I probably remind myself of that every day.
yeah, I think what you say is very important. It's not the ones that, you know, said, "Oh, your photography is fantastic. Oh, I love what you're showing me." It's the ones that really push you to question yourself and push your work into different areas. Let's go into the first picture that you sent me. Why don't you tell me about this one that was the very first one you picked to show?
Definitely not the norm of the first picture, but I was a Beatlemaniac, you know. This was in March, well, the snapshot, March 64. So that was a month after they were on the Ed Sullivan show when I shot this off the screen. And that was like a record in my family, getting a roll of film developed in a month. Usually we had every holiday, you know, like for the whole year on a 12 roll, 12 exposure roll. So yeah, so that, you know, and I'm so glad I had them in my scrapbook, and obviously I didn't take care of them and I ripped them out and scanned them in, but it's just history for me.
And we'll move on to the second picture here.
That's was shot on her honeymoon, and it was to this day it's still my favorite picture, and that was shot in '77.
Wow.
And you know, obviously it's historic now, the phone booth, but I love that man because first of all, he must have stayed there like 15 minutes. I could have probably shot 10 rolls, but I was shooting film. So he just stayed there, and it kind of makes you want to linger on the picture. And then you see the face in the background in the rain. And it's just, I love it on so many levels, but
it's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, this one and the next one were from Travel and Leisure, and they always stressed portraits. And this was a portrait of, we were doing an assignment on Oaxaca. And I show this picture because it's going to drive a lot of people crazy, because you see his foot. Feet are very close to the frame, okay?
Yeah.
Now, that was like a default of mine. It wasn't a good default. Cropping the camera, and I always crop too much. But anyway, last
So you're saying you would do it differently now? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. Last summer, I took Mac Holbert's fine art printmaking class in Maine, and it was really about file optimization. And he turned me on to the content aware tool, and that was like, whoa, that just changed my world. So now my mission is to go back and fix every single one.
You just draw the crop outside, and it will fill in the rest of the wall for you. You may have to.
That was like the hospital wall.
Toe in, but you'll be able to fill that all in, no problem.
Oh, I already did. And you know, next watching this, forgive me. I didn't show that one because this one had a story. And that was for a story for Travel and Leisure on New York as an island, because very few people think of it as an island. So we were trying to come up with all kinds of ideas, what to do and how to show that. And we were on the tugboat that was piloting in the QE2 in the Hudson River.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to actually stop. They stopped the race because there were swimmers in the water. And I was like, whoa. And so I'm like yelling down. I mean, I'm, you know.
Which is not something you usually say in New York City, right?
Yeah. So, so I'm yelling down, excuse me, where can I get a hold of you? You know, and it was all low tech back then. And it ended up, you know, he was the mayor of Keansburg, New Jersey, and he had towed a raft full of oranges from the Battery to Red Bank, I think, you know, to create awareness for Agent Orange. Nicest guy in the world. So we told him about this shot, and we rented a boat out of South Street Seaport. We probably got about a roll and a half off, and you know, we're looking blind, took our viewfinders off our cameras, get them low to the water, and the boat started, let me just not let my computer go to sleep. But the boat started sinking. So we were, it was a huge story, and we made it back to the seaport, and literally.
So you shot this on film?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And is this all natural light, or?
Oh, everything's natural.
Yeah,
yeah, and the storm was rolling in. I mean, there's a lot of river traffic on that river, and when you have to, you know, we had one guy, the steering had broken, so he was like sticking his feet down. I'm not a nautical person, but. Down deep, you know, and steering the boat backwards. And I'm like in that scene out of the old movie Airplane, you know, you had to like slap me because I'm seeing the Staten Island Ferry, the Governor's Island Ferry, and kind of losing it. But we made it. And I'm so glad we did, because.
Fabulous.
So then I was telling Esteban, he is doing a tour in China in 2020. And I was in China, this was in 1983, and I was actually in the middle of preparing scans and slides because I wanted to do an exhibit. I figured 37 years. Wow. It's so different. It's time to tell about that experience.
Right.
And I had wanted to go to China, I don't know, ever since I was a little kid. And that was the first or second year they allowed a single person to go rather than being in a group. So for me, for photography, I said, great. So 5 weeks by myself, but I was thinking like an American, and I didn't plan any hotel reservations, any flights, any trains. And so you just couldn't do that then, you know. It had just come out of this communal society, and people just ignored me, basically. But photographic,
was that good or bad as a photographer? Sometimes
well,
being all ignoring you, that might be the best thing possible.
it was the best thing that ever could have happened photographically, because I just could roam anywhere I want, and did. But it was hard just to, you know, I'd have to play, you know, you'll have to read my book if I ever write one, but I would have to do tricks to like get a hotel room and things like that. But photographically, it was wonderful. So these are kids playing in the rain. This is the man in the stone forest. And keep in mind, I mean, I was an oddball. You know, I'm close to 6 feet tall, and a Caucasian woman by herself in China in 1983. It was like, wow. You know, I attracted a lot of attention. People were furious.
Would they come up to you? How did they?
Oh yeah. Everybody who was learning English came up to me and wanted to practice.
Did you find it very, or just curiosity? What was the feeling?
It depended on my mood, you know. You know, because I don't know about you all, but for me, travel is a very, at least as a solo, as a photographer, not so much as to shoot video. It's very much a solo experience for me, you know, because when I'm with other people, it changes the whole rapport.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic. Do you prefer to travel alone when you're
I do. And for that reason, you know, I'm not one to do those kind of workshops, you know. I have, you know, and I've taught video to photojournalists in China for a month. That was tough, but yeah.
But this gentleman,
like, you know, like that. This, by the way, was all shot in Kodachrome. Some of these I opted to drop out, you know, when I digitized them. But you know, I had like 3 lenses. This was probably a 24, and I just, you know, I knew he was going slow, you know, so I figured even walking backwards, you know, I could still keep up, right? And I was a lot younger.
Is there film that you miss now that you're a digital shooter? Is there you're like, oh,
no.
the fun memories, or was there one that you used consistently as a journalist, or when you were working, or
a film? Yeah, well, it started out with Kodachrome and then probably switched to Velvia. Only used Actachrome if I absolutely had to, you know.
I love this shot. Why don't you tell us this?
That's the Forbidden City, and you know, I was in the inside looking out, and it's funny. I never thought of this till now, but I've always felt like I'm on the outside looking in, and sometimes people notice that about my pictures, and I don't know how to take that, but I moved like 12 times before I got out of high school, so I always felt like I was on the outside looking in.
Do you feel, having moved so much as a child, that it influences you as an adult in terms like you always need to be somewhere new, and staying in one place is difficult, or?
No, not necessarily. I think it's made me much more flexible. You know, like I've just had to deal with change a lot, you know, and so I've never been that averse to making changes, if that makes sense. Although I do get bad dreams if I'm going somewhere to this day.
Are you a good traveler? No worries on flights or anything like that?
No, I've never. But I have bad dreams
before getting on a plane. Which is not fun when it's an early morning flight either, because I'm like, I'm not sitting next to you. I'm sitting.
I mean, like these guys, they barely looked up, you know. So that was great. I had moments like that, and after the curiosity left, I just, you know, I do a lot of hanging around.
So, question: you made a comment they didn't look up. Do you find from shooting years ago and when you were shooting on film, not that the film has anything to do with it, but shooting in a world that wasn't so used to every single person having a camera, do you find that it is now very different shooting in any place you're going, that they're more conscious of cameras, they're more, they will look up? It's like, how has that changed for you as a photographer, say 20 years ago to now?
Well, I have a sort of a rule for myself, if I will not ask to take their picture, but if they look up, I will.
Yeah.
Or I'll motion. Okay. I try to be a fly on the wall, and it was certainly a lot easier then, but again, I was a 6 feet and Caucasian woman from the moon, as far as they were concerned, I think. This is an amazing place called the Stone Forest. And
it's one of those things you would think that is just made up in a movie. It just doesn't look real.
Well, the story was there's only one bus in and one bus out of this back then anyway, and basically one hotel to stay in. And the bus didn't leave till 3. And the first thing I saw when I walked into the hotel room was a sign over the bed that said, checkout time is 9 a.m. or you will be punished.
Oh my God.
Now, if I had a phone that took pictures, I would have shot that, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't gonna like put a roll in the film, and I mean, those are the ones that got away.
How about this?
All right, that was my first assignment for the National Geographic Traveler magazine.
Oh wow.
And it was in Montreal, mural artist, and that was a dream of mine. That working for the Geographic, and I'd go down to Washington probably every 3 months for maybe 3 years till I got this job. And my aspiration was to work for the Yellow magazine. And, I probably went the way I should have, but that was my goal. And I had already come from kind of a more, I'll say soft travel reportage,
Yeah.
and he saw me that way, Gilka. Now, Gilka was the art director, and he had a sign on his door to his office, made out of like the doormat material, and it said, "Wipe your knees before entering." That was the sign on his door. Now, he was a big teddy bear, but he was also a man of few words, and I'd be in and out, and as long as you could look at a tray of 40 slides, right? Which for him, 5 minutes. And, but I would play tricks, and I'd go down there and I'd do one-liners of stories I wanted to do. And my record was I was in there an hour, This is from an assignment I almost didn't take. It was for Smithsonian, and I was a city people shooter. And the assignment was on Arthur County, Nebraska, the smallest county population-wise in the United States. And it was probably one of the best assignments I've ever done.
Oh.
So I learned to be open,
Yeah.
And this was Sam Carr. He's a blues drummer. A wonderful 3-hour interview with him. So, I have a wonderful capsule of, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these guys. They're all gone now. And it was multimedia, so I shot stills, and I was just going into digital, so I was shooting stills with digital and film, and then video with my XL1 camera. So, it was quite a chore. But
what's that transition for you, going from film to where you did you accept the digital? Was it a tough transition? Did you fight it?
Well, I went to digital video before I went to digital stills, only because it enabled me to shoot video without a big crew and a lot of money, right? Yeah. And then I quickly switched to digital stills.
Which I'm sure made it easier after going from video to...
Yes and no, yeah. And then the last 2 are a couple of recent, this is probably the last international trip I took a couple of years ago. I think that was in Hanoi. It was in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And the last one,
a very special place. I've been there. And
yeah. Oh yeah. I probably stood there for 2 hours shooting scooters,
I love these little boats.
Yeah. Well, that I belong to another trade association other than ASMP, APA, and this was the Society of American Travel Writers, and they have mostly writers, although a lot of the writers are photographers too, and a few professional photographers. And this one, they have the muster awards every year, and this one 2019, this in a single subject portfolio. So I like to say I might be a dinosaur, but I'm not extinct, I can still win.
So this next one, I know you wanted to start with, and I force you to end with this share. Why don't you tell me about what we're about to kind of look upon?
Okay. So this is a 50-second tease about a feature film that I have been working out. It started on as profiles of women, video profiles of women who are working in male-dominated professions, which there's quite a lot of them still. And my whole goal was to motivate and inspire other women and young girls to possibilities. And up until, I've been doing this for 5 years, and then a friend kind of coaxed me into making a feature out of this, which I did with the intention that I will go back to doing a series, because it's meant for a series. I could do this till I die, and sadly, I'll never run out of male-dominated professions and work, but I'll be happy if that happens. So
I'm going to share it, and then we're going to discuss it.
Sure.
So let's do that.
As a woman, you have to prove yourself a little bit more than the boys. People are always going to check where the girl finished at the end of the race.
Everybody looks over at me. They have this idea that they're going to test me and see if I'm going to be scared.
We'd always talk about if you could do anything in the world, what would it be? I think I want to learn how to fly a helicopter. So I did.
This is a great time to be a woman.
I am one of 3 active female blimp pilots in the world.
Being a female, is still something new in racing. If you look at Formula E paddock, I'm the only one.
I have a goal, and I'm going to reach it.
So tell me about this piece just quickly.
Okay, so anyway, I went back into production in the summer and did quite a lot of traveling, Montana, Las Vegas, South Dakota, and interviewed some great women, and spent probably from Christmas till, the end of February, pretty much in isolation editing this film. And right when I was to a point where I was finished, the world kind of stopped and everybody went into isolation, quarantine. And I had already been kind of in quarantine for 2 months already. So then I said, all right, I'm going to hit the pause button, and I'll probably hire a composer for the score, and maybe, get someone to tweak the sound and use my time. But I went on, I think it was an open talk, with Katrina and you, and I was asking, when's the right time to release a movie? It's all about empowering women, and it just didn't seem quite right. And you both were very emphatic that people need inspiration now. And so I totally sort of changed my strategy and did a mailing and a lot of investigation on women's conferences that had been canceled or were going virtual. And so I said, this is my moment. I can offer screenings, private screenings with Q&As, and that's possible now.
So with that, I'm going to move on to our other person in the waiting, Esteban. Esteban, tell me about yourself. Where did you first get started, and what was your first camera, and how did this photography thing brew in you and become to a profession?
All right, thank you. I was just amazed looking at Gail's work. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Well, I have always wondered where did it started, and then I remember when I was like 8 years old, my mom gave me like this, yeah, like camera, like this really old camera to take photographs in a trip I was going with a friend, and I remember I got so excited about like getting all this camera, and I didn't know how to use it, and it was just like a point and shoot camera, but still I enjoyed a lot. But I couldn't say that was the beginning of my work as a photographer. I will say it started off like when I was around 14 years old. I was trying to become a musician, and I was playing guitar and bass, but then I just met photography, and then I had to decide like, okay, what I'm gonna do with my life. I will put some time on music, or I will do it for photography. And in that sense, I just decided to go more into photography because it somehow pushed me to go outside and discover the world. Because if you want to do photography, you have to go out and take pictures, and that really interested me. And then I decided to start working into photography, like started getting into it. That was the beginning.
Remember your
The first camera was it was a Kodak, like something like that. But the first, like, I remember that after that I had a Nikon F1 that I still have, and then like the first digital was like Nikon D40X. So.
And now you shoot for who?
I should. That's a tricky question. I got you there. Now I'm a Sony ambassador. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. I know we're all Sony shooters. That was coincidence. It just happened to be. So I obviously asked you to share some photos with me, and you sent 7. And after looking, and knowing your work, I added a bunch more. So let's go into. I'm going to share, and you can talk about these photos as I share.
Sure.
So let's go into this, and hopefully this goes a little smoother. So let's go into the first photo here, and why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, I think when you told me like, okay, just pick up like 7 pictures, I said like what I'm gonna show there, and then I decided to go back like to this festival that is the Holi Festival.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place in India. Basically, it celebrates the end of the winter and the beginning of the spring. So there are thousands of people gathering together to like celebrate, play with color, water. It's a really, I would say, mess, but it's also like a really interesting place to be, and especially to photograph. And when I just like saw this picture, like one of these pictures of the Holi Festival that I have attended for 2 years, I just thought like, how this will change in the future with the situation we're going through with the coronavirus. So then I just thought like, will this ever happen again? Like so many people in one place celebrating, and and you can see through the pictures that if you want to keep like going, I took this, I document this festival from different angles, and people is really close, like nearby one by each other. And I think like, it's all the opposite that we are supposed to do now in this quarantine.
So where are you positioned in taking these photos?
Well, the first 2, I was in a balcony. This is an interesting story. It's like since this is a really crowded place, I figure out how to go into a balcony that is allowed only for for like militaries and people from the army. And then I just went from there, and I had a fantastic point of view. But it was really hard.
Did you talk your way into that, or how did you finagle getting that vantage point?
The first time I just like talked with the guy at the entrance, and he just allowed me. But the second time it was really hard because there was like this crazy guy that didn't want me to be there, and he just basically like pushed me, and it was a really big trouble to be there. but I managed to to be there. And in this one, like in the first one, I was shooting from the balcony, but it was the first year I went in 2018. But last year I decided like, okay, I have to go down there and shoot from the ground. The first year I wasn't so like convinced to go there because I thought like, what's gonna happen with my camera? And you know, it seemed a little bit dangerous to be in there, especially because there's a lot of water involved. And then the next year I just decided like I have to go in, I have to see how it feels from there. And I feel I personally like more the pictures that I got from the ground than from the balcony, because it felt like more like real close, I don't know. And
So
that's what I
your
got.
camera in plastic, and how are you preparing your camera for this?
I just said like, I just wrap it
Go with
in
it.
plastic.
Yeah.
And let's do it. But you know, it's like, it's so intense. It takes around like 4 or 5 hours to be there. And at the end, it's really, really hot. I mean, like you're sweating, they throw you water. And especially it's something I personally had to struggle with. It's that they saw that I had a camera and they tried to throw me water. And I was like, you know, like trying to avoid the water, and then trying to get not to get dust in the camera. But
Right.
I think it was like really interesting to see how the cameras can resist these harsh conditions.
Yeah, it's is it something you would do again, or is it like, I've done that, I'm going to check it off?
Well, you know, every time, like the first time I went to the Holy Festival, I said, this is the last time I'm going to do it. Next year, I wanted to be there. And last year when I was there, I remember I was with my videographer that I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. And I just told her like, you know, this is the last time I'm going to do the Holy Festival. And this year I was thinking like, I can't wait to go again and document the Holy from different angles, and, you know, like they get different stories. So every time I say like, I will not go back again, but in the end, I'll return.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Sure.
And how about obviously this is you.
Yes, this is like, yeah, I just picked this picture. Like, I mean, like I don't only focus on the Holy Festival or India. My job is to travel around the world, different places, document cultures, landscape, people, and this is a really nice picture that I like from last year. So this is a little bit about me. Yeah, that's Namibia.
Absolutely beautiful. One of the places that's definitely on my list that I haven't been yet. So
Oh,
we'll
you have
definitely
to.
be talking to you about that. And tell me about this.
Yes, this, well, you know, like then when all this quarantine started, it was like, well, what I'm going to do, I'm a travel photographer. Like I should be, you know, right now I should be attending the Palm Springs Photo Festival.
I was supposed to be there too. We would have both been there.
So, you know, it's like I just started like figuring out like what I'm gonna do, and then I decided like, okay, I can stop like thinking about photography. And this is a workshop I have been doing for a couple of years now. That it's like a Lightroom and Photoshop editing. And then I decided to do my first online workshop in Spanish. So it has been really successful. I just launched it like 1 week ago, and right now I think I have like more than 650 students, which I think is fantastic.
That's great. I'm going to go into, I know you didn't put up a video, but I pulled one of your videos.
this is a video I shot from 2018 and 2019, and it's it's about my job, it's about the work I do, and I wanted to have like how to introduce myself when I wanted to show what the work that I do, and then I decided it was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So
When I saw this, obviously I became a professional photographer about 5 or 6 years ago, and each year I've pushed myself to go to more and more exotic locations. And last year I went to like 3 or 4. This year I was on track to go to 3 or 4. When I watched this, at first I was giddy with like, oh my God, these places are so beautiful, so fantastic, and I want to be there. And then I'm thinking, when is it going to open back up? Is this ever going to be quite the same? And I kind of got weepy and sad. Like, how are you feeling right now in terms of what you do is travel, and what you do is experience people, and being very close and empathetic, and being, part of people and groups? How has this changed? What's going on in your mind in all of this?
well, I think it's a little bit complicated. I think it's gonna take maybe a couple of years to be something similar that we do what we were used to. I think the world it's gonna return to some things that were happening. I think we will not stop exploring our planet, because I think it's in our nature to go and explore these places. And of course I'm really afraid. That's what really makes me like really worried. Like it's not about like when I will be able to go out. It's like I hope that by the moment I can go out, I can go and keep working on this. But even if the world changes, it's like, we have to adapt to it, and we will have to figure out.
I want to share a
Sure.
couple more of your photos here, just because they're quite stellar, and maybe you can tell us a little about them.
Yeah, and this is fantastic, because we were just discussing with Gail and actually with you that this video is talking about like China 2020. I had a workshop. I have a workshop still. It's supposed to take place in October this year.
Are there
I
still
don't know if
spaces, or it's totally sold out?
it's totally sold out by now.
Fantastic. Well, if someone
And
drops out because of this, I expect the first phone call.
I hope that it's like we were discussing with Gail like about China, and we were saying like how difficult will be for people to trust in China in general, and it's going to be hard. And I hope that I am really expecting that if it doesn't happen this year, I will definitely do it in 2021.
Yeah.
Because I think China is absolutely gorgeous, and it's a really different culture from ours, but I think it's fantastic. And I don't think we should be somehow racist about what is going on, because it could have happened in any place of the world. What is going on?
Obviously I gravitate like to your work because I grew up in film and TV. I worked in film even before I even thought about being a photographer. And your style is very cinematic. Is this something you developed over time, or is it you've always felt this way? Or like how did your style develop to this?
I think, well, maybe I studied visual arts in university, and then I had I focused on film. So maybe somehow it just pushed me there. But to be honest, it's not something I am conscious of. It's not like, okay, I want to create these cinematic images. It's just what I do. It's like it just happens. And it's always interesting when people ask me like, about this, like how you plan it so much, like you think about the light. And I do think about the light, I do think about the colors, and I plan a lot my shots, but it's like it just happens. It's just what it's there. I'm just documenting it with my camera.
So how much are you discovering these shots, and how much are you setting up these shots? I mean, are they, setting up lights outside? Or are you're taking natural light and throwing dust up? Or how are you accomplishing a certain repeatable shot?
Yeah, it depends. It depends from shot to shot. There are some shots that I have just look. I do it this way. Every time I travel, I try to have some photographs in my mind. So I go like, okay, I will have these pictures when I go back home, and then I start planning. And sometimes I draw the pictures that I imagine, and I think like, okay, I want to wait for a girl or maybe a lady to cross this river, and then I'll be waiting there, and then I can get it. In that sense, I go for that picture, and then I discover some more interesting things, but I know what I want. And in that sense, I get the pictures that I'm looking for, and then I get some other pictures that I didn't plan. Some pictures I just go, for example, with these kids, I just, I feel I'm so lucky when I'm traveling, and I met this man in Myanmar who used to attend a monastery, and he used to be a monk. So he said, like, you want to document monks? You can come with me, and I know all of them, and we can go to school, and we can join their ceremonies, and we can join everything about them. And I was like, this is a really big chance. I mean, I said yes immediately, and then I just like start doing it, and then I got like a little, like really good friends with these little monks, and then we started like doing pictures in one location. We went to another, we had lunch together, and then it just happens. And yeah
it's fabulous. I know I have a couple more shots of you. I mean, obviously, your use of light and color and design, it's pretty incredible, and extremely cinematic in here.
Yeah, for example, this picture, the story, many people is like asking me like, he was posing for you or something like that. And this is in the Old Delhi train station. I was just walking. I spent like a whole afternoon walking in the train station, and then like I was just trying to see something interesting. I just took the camera, take the picture. Many of them were just like moving. They didn't want me to take the picture. And when I noticed that, I just didn't point to them. But I remember this guy. I just look at him, and I just show him the camera. Like, this is a really fast connection, because they are like all the time like coming and going. And he just looked at me, and when I show him the camera, he just went like, he just posed, and that was like
absolutely
and then I got the shot.
I mean, this is like, having worked on film productions, this would have taken like hours for them to light properly. The blues in the background, the colors, the shadows. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's
but it just happens naturally.
This is the last image that I wanted to end on with your stuff. And why don't you tell us about the story on this shot?
Yeah, the first time I saw this shot, I was really inspired by this. It was in the Sony SWPA, the Sony World Photography Awards, and I was just so amazed by this that I decided to start reading what was said about, and then I realized it's like theater in northern China. But then I had to make a long trip to get into this function, and I just made it, and I love this, like the colors and the representation they're doing of traditional China, which of course doesn't happen anymore. But at the same time, it's really interesting, because I think this photograph makes you like dream about something, and somehow like evokes your imagination and your feelings, and then you start like thinking what it could be, and then you realize it's like theater, and it's fantastic too, because it's like, well, it's not what I expected, but it's like something also interesting.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you both now. Where were you when you kind of discovered that this whole pandemic was not a flu? It was not something that was going to be like, oh, this is just going to pass quickly. How was that transition for you? When did you actually, in your head, did it click like, oh, wait, the world's now different. I'm something's different. Gail, I'm going to start with you. When did it really kind of hit you, or has it hit you, and in what gravity? And
No, yes and no. I mean, like I was already sort of living like this, and I've been thinking a lot about, change is slow, right? I look at it like the women's movement. Yeah, it's changed in 40 years, but it didn't seem like it. You know what you know. And I think I don't know. I don't think this will ever get back to the way it used to be. Perhaps not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So when I think about that, I get a little sad, but then again, you know, I roll with the punches. I've had to do that pretty much most of my life. And this is like the ultimate punch, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't.
Was there
really-
a certain like day? I mean, were you like, oh, I'm not scheduled to do this? I'm like, oh wait, the world's been canceled. Was or just it just kind of each day was a natural progression? There was no like.
No, I think that's where I'm a little bit different in that, you know, I've kind of gone away from assignment work just because
Yeah.
I've gotten older, and it's like, you know, if it wasn't hard to be a woman, it's even harder to be an older woman. So at the same time, you know, I just have so many of my own ideas,
Yeah.
whether they're in still or motion, that, you know, I call them self-initiated projects because my intention is to make money.
Right.
And if I say personal, well, they're all personal, right? It's just how it's perceived.
Yeah. And for you, Esteban, was there kind of a, and you're in a different part of the world. So what's it like where you are, and how did you come to any kind of?
I mean, we're having a really, right now in Colombia, we're having a really strict like lockdown. So we are basically not allowed to even like go outside, and you know, it's like going to the market. It's really complicated. Like people, like last week, people were allowed for the first time in 2 months to go and exercise. So people were, you know, like going crazy about this quarantine. And I remember it was 2 months ago. I was traveling in Colombia. I was filming a documentary, and we were with the crew seated in this restaurant. And you know, one of them just took off their phones, and he said like, oh, you know, we have the first coronavirus patient in Colombia. And we were just laughing about it, like, yeah, so when we go back it will be 3. And you know, like we were just like really relaxed about it.
Yeah.
And then we went inside in this like our really deep into in you know, in the Colombian field. And then when we returned, it was like everything was supposed to be closed. And we were really lucky to be able to reach home, and we did it, and that was it. I mean, since then I've been here for 2
How has it
months.
affected you? I mean, was it like one day like I'm supposed to be doing all these different travels and these trips, and then suddenly it's like I'm stuck at home and everything's canceled?
You know, I am, although traveling, it's like it's like people, when you tell them like I'm a travel photographer, they think that you're all the year round traveling and going to different places. But actually it takes a lot of pre-production, about planning, about you know, like talking with your fixers, knowing where you go. So I'm really used to spend a lot of time in lockdown, just in front of the computer, sending emails, video chatting, stuff like that. So at first it was not that hard for me, because I felt like, okay, I'm gonna work in stuff that I have in the future, September, October, to see, because I thought like, okay, by September it will be over, so let's work on that. And well, right now I am just enjoying. I'm just trying to enjoy what I can.
What is it like in another country viewing the United States at this point? I mean, are you having discussions like, I can't believe that like it's an issue, they're protesting and staying at home? Like what is the kind of common viewpoint of where you are judging America and what's going on here?
Well, you know, I think Colombia has a really like Colombia depends a lot on the United States. Maybe you don't know this, but it's like we are really related, and I feel our culture is really like American somehow. So we were expecting a lot of the United States. You know, like, yeah, we have the vaccine, or we have a medicine for coronavirus, and now we're seeing what is happening, and it's like, oh, this is getting really horrible there. And but I think at the same time, it's like, you know, it's getting worse, but I like, nobody knows what to do. So it's like, okay, if you don't have anything better to say, it's like
Yeah.
Done.
Gail,
Yeah.
How has anything like substantially changed for you, like your daily rituals, or do you find yourself like, oh no, I'm used to staying at home and my life hasn't changed that much, or now you find yourself, going to sleep earlier and waking up earlier? How's life changed or altered at all for you?
I not a lot. I get up early, and like I said in the beginning, I'm pretty positive. That resonated when Esteban said that. That's like, yeah, I'm a half full kind of person, but I need to be forward thinking. And I also started thinking about, I know this isn't your question, but
No, go
I
ahead.
also started thinking about mentors, and certainly my perspective since, my perspective is I had incredible mentors in my life. And I would say that all of them were considerably older than me. And I don't see that as much. And I started thinking about that during this, because I'm thinking maybe there'll be more intergenerational, just because of what's been happening with these, older people dying, and their parents, their kids, their grown kids can't see them, and all this drama, right? That's pretty profound. And I know that, when I started out, that was kind of how you got started. You apprenticed, you learned from the people that came before you. And I don't see that. And I started thinking about that. And I certainly think that technology kind of created a divide, if you will, like when things went digital.
Yeah.
And then it sort of separated itself. And I'm wondering and kind of hopeful that it becomes more intergenerational for both people's behalf, And I was speaking to actually chatting with a woman who actually gave me my first solo assignment, and it was, oddly enough, her name's Gail Towers. Maybe she's still on, but she was one of the few female art directors, and she gave me an assignment. It had to be in the early 80s, and it was about a little girl, 12 years old, and she was playing on an all-boys soccer team for Women's Sports Magazine. And that was like unheard of back then. And she had no other team to play on. There was no girls team, sports team. And that seems like, I'm not like the kind of person who walked 3 miles in the snow, but you know what I mean? There's perspective is what I'm trying to say. And I think, if I was to tell someone young starting out, I would probably tell them just be curious and be open to all kinds of influences, not just photography. It could be gardening, it could be paintings, it could be music. And I just think that curiosity that comes with travel is just good for everybody, because it's kind of, the total opposite of being ignorant, and that's what causes fear. So I've been thinking a lot. I know that wasn't your question.
It's all right.
As you know, I'm kind of a stream of consciousness.
That's why I wanted you on here. I know.
And I'm just thinking about the whole mentor thing. And I think, I thank you so much for this community that you're building, because it can be an isolating profession anyway, and it certainly is now. And it's a community that's specific to a smaller community. And that's unusual. And I also think, I used to be very involved with ASMP and you as APA. And I, to be perfectly honest, when people would say, why should I be a member? I would say advocacy, but I never had a great reason until now. And they have both
thank you
stepped
for saying
up.
that. The most important thing for me was now more than ever, why
Yes.
would I want to be a member of something? And I think
Yes.
it's so important now, community and support, and knowing you're not alone, and that we're here for
Exactly.
each other, and that we're going to go through this and get through this together. And
Yeah.
we may not have the right answers, but we're going to ask a lot of the right questions, and we're going to
Exactly.
have these open talks. And thank you for going. I don't even remember what the original question was, because this is open talk, and I want people to really kind of dive into and explain themselves and where they're at. And Esteban, is part of a larger community and dealing with a lot of photographers. Are people asking you, like, I'm scared, what am I going to do? What are you taught? What kind of conversations are you having with other photographers right now?
Well, it's like I remember yesterday I received a call from the producer, the filming we were doing before the quarantine, and he just told me, like, we have to keep filming, so we will do this and this. And for the first time, I was laying on my bed listening at the phone, and I felt like really scared to go outside. Like I was just thinking, like, crossing that door, I'll be like really scared. And I was like, wow, when did I become afraid of going outside? But at the same time, it's like it's really amazing what is happening about like this. Like I'm in Colombia, you're in New Jersey, and you're in New York, and then we're sharing with people that can be getting in from any place in the world. And I have been able to finally like talk with photographers, editors, and people that I have always wanted to meet because of this. So I mean, it's like, yeah, we're isolating somehow, but we are creating, I think, a bigger community that will, I think this will remain on time. I think this will not disappear after the virus. We will see, like new festivals, and actually we're seeing this, like Eddie Adams workshop will take place online this year, or I think it will happen something like that with Palm Spring. And it's like,
Have you seen the drive-in rock concerts and the concerts that are popping up?
yeah, I mean, like those.
Some of this stuff is unbelievable and crazy. I think there'll be a new normal, and I hope, through all this, that we understand to put yourself in other people's shoes, to have empathy, to reach out and help each other, and know that we are a community. Because at this point, I really feel it in the USA more now than ever. These last couple of years, people have been more quick to be like what divides us instead of our commonalities. And we have so many more commonalities. And why are we always looking for the one thing that divides us? And I think we need to let that go, because right now we're all going through the same things on a global scale. And there's never been something that like this in our lifetimes, and hopefully not again. But, now is the most important thing as a community. Like everybody thinks, what am I going to do? Yes, there's the fear of the future. There's the fear of eating, and there's fear of my financial stability. But also at the same time, as an artist, you only get one shot at something like this, in terms of sharing your voice, that for something that is so momentous, that's going to go down in the archives for everybody to have. And no matter where you are, your voice is important, and you need to figure out your voice right now. Because if you're even at home alone, if you're out with first responders, and you can tell a story, and that story is so important right now. What are you guys doing right now in terms of new stuff? Have you been inspired to work on new stuff? What's sort of kind of Phoenix has come up from the ashes in this for you guys that you're working on and trying to stay motivated?
Go ahead,
You want to go first, Gail? All right, I will begin.
Go.
I wasn't quite sure about sharing this story, but I'm just starting like a new relationship, and this girl is right now based in Russia, and it's quite interesting, because I have been like taking like pictures of like our virtual conversations, and it's like I'm really fascinated with these pictures. Like it's something I have never done in the past, and now I look at this photograph like we're just, I don't know, like singing, and I just take the camera with me, and I'm also documenting story. And I think it will be amazing in the future to just remember this, like, wow.
I think it's such an important story to tell right now.
And it's it's like love in 2020, and it couldn't be like more like 2020, like everything is virtual. It's like, and I'm like, and also she's like, like it happened just like this. And but it's like as I told her, it's like you could be around the corner and we will be able to see each other because of quarantine. So and it's really, that's a project I have been really motivated with working on.
And
Yeah.
Miguel?
I haven't felt motivated to shoot, and yet I'm totally moved by people that are, but I guess because it's hard for me to be still, and I'm learning to be still, and that's not easy for someone like me, but I think it's time to do that, just because I think I need to spend some time working on some legacy stuff,
Yeah.
So I've got mixed feelings about it, and maybe it's kind of a message. Well, hey, that's the time for that.
Yeah. What has been sort of the darkest period for you here? What demon is kind of sunk in? I know for me, it took a long time for it to come in. The first several weeks I was diving into creating these shows and webinars, and then I guess kind of burnt out. And then I was shooting some stuff to keep me entertained. But then, like I said at the opening of the show, it was like, wow, the realization that my whole life to this point is going to be different going forward, possibly. And that, for me, really putting my hands around that really messed with my head, and knowing that I've worked so hard and found after all these years, found my passion of photography. And this year was going to be a banner year for me, of all these, companies I was working with, these trips I was going to take, and they've all been canceled. Like, everything is wiped out from my calendar, and the future is like, we don't know what photography is going to be like, or how quickly it's going to open back up, or what restaurants are going to open, if it's going to open, like what the world is going to look like. And that started really seeping in my head. And I went to a dark place for a little while, and it was like, you got to keep positive. You got to keep positive. But it was banging through my wall. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm panicking. Have you gone through some periods, or what dark things have you encountered yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was having a bad day once, and I mentioned it to Tom, my husband. We're in the same boat, We've never done anything but photography. We've never had a real job, as my mother used to say, But I remember being down, and he was in a bad mood or something. And I remember being down, and he said, well, get used to it. And that was like it. That was like, oh, I can't get used to this. I just like totally had a meltdown. But it's little things that hit me by surprise, I think that's what's strange.
How about you, Esteban? Have you had some
I have it. Yes, I have it like at least 2 times per week that I am just laying in my bed.
2 times an hour.
And I just realized, like, oh my God, I've been trapped here for 2 months. Like, what's next? And it's like it's funny about our government, because we are in quarantine, we're in lockdown, we're not allowed to go outside, and I feel they are afraid to say how much it will take to reopen. So they are like, every they say like, okay, on May the 5th we will reopen. And then when it's like May the 1st, they go like, okay, quarantine will go until May the 25th. And then you're like, oh my God, but you also expect
you're not even allowed outside?
No, I mean, like, only if you work with healthcare, like hospitals or things or food things, or
so to go for
like
a walk or a run, that's no. What about getting food or supplies? Or
until last week it wasn't allowed. And getting food, you had like it's been like really strange. Like, we have like days that men are allowed to go to the supermarket to get supplies, and days for women too. So it's strange. So you have to start thinking like, okay, today I can go outside, but we are really used to order things, like deliveries, and then I haven't go outside yet because of that.
Which it kind of baffles me, because I get very frustrated when people aren't taking it seriously here, and you see like the first sunny day and everybody's out in the park sitting next to each other and stuff like that. You're not even allowed to go out. And here we're kind of abusing the ability to actually go out and get exercise, and and to be responsible, social distancing, which drives me crazy, because even when I go to the grocery store and I put on my masks, and like, I remember the first time I went, like the first week, I'm like, I feel like an idiot. I'm gonna be the only one in there with this mask, and and then I put it on, and now it's like, if you walk into a grocery store and you don't have a mask, you're not that person with a mask, everyone looks at you like you're the person that's, So right now, I think it's bizarre that you're not even allowed outside. And how's
Ye-
that? How are you dealing with that on a day level? What are you doing? Anything differently? Any rituals? Do you make yourself, I'm going to get up at this time? Or are you just like kind of day by day? Or are you trying to stick to something?
I have like some routines. So for example, I try to do exercise 1 hour every day, so that helps a lot. I try to go day by day, but I mean, like, I think it's really, I don't see as a bad thing that you actually go outside and enjoy it for a walk, or maybe, like, I was just seeing this photographer from California, Chris,
Yeah,
you
Chris.
know him.
Yeah, of course.
Chris, yes.
I've been up in a
He
plane
was,
with him.
yeah, so he was just flying, and he was not flying, he was doing bicycle in all the state, and I thought, like, that's amazing, and he's not doing any harm to anyone, so that's really cool. And I think we will see in the future who did it the best. I think
Yeah.
only history will judge it, but so far I think it's really important not only to take care of health, like our body, but also our mental health. And I think, like, being trapped inside your house, fortunately I live in a really big house and I can move from one place to the other, but
Yeah.
some people that live in a really small flat, they go like crazy, and I can understand that. And I'm absolutely sure that in the future, not so far from now, we will be seeing here things like what is happening in the United States, like a reopen. I don't care about the coronavirus. I think it makes sense not to ask for that, but just to feel like, like, it's human nature to feel fear. And I don't support it, but I kind of comprehend what is going on. And
Yeah.
yeah.
What, for both of you, and I'll start with you, Gail. Have you thought about, and what do you think that the future of photography looks like, either for you or for the industry? I mean, how do you feel we're coming back from this? Have you given it thought?
Well,
And
I think we're going to have to utilize the new technology for a while. For example, I started a side business on doing high-end family films, biographical films, like a Ken Burns film,
yeah,
where I would do interviews with people's loved ones, and then I'd take their old footage or photographs and combine it into like a
Oh,
movie.
that's great.
And I think the time is perfect for that when this is over. I've already gotten a couple of inquiries, but I think I'm going to have to find a way to interview them remotely.
yeah,
Kind of
Mhm.
like Charles Jessler's doing those remote portraits.
yeah. We had Charles on here, and he's doing the Faces of Zoom, and he's shooting
Yeah.
these portraits remotely, and they're fantastic, and they're very moving. And Charles has a natural ability to connect with people and talk with them at an emotional level. So even though there's distance, he still evokes emotion and connects with people, which is an amazing thing to do over this. And being isolated, you've never had an easier time to actually, I was talking to you about this, to
Yeah.
actually shoot remotely. And you can literally set up 2 iPhones and a microphone and shoot remotely and have different camera angles at a time when, several years ago, you probably wouldn't have been able to do, that. And it's an
Exactly. And
incredible time.
I keep imagining, like, oh my God, what would have been like if this hit 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Right? A whole
Ima-
different story. And then
Imagine,
Yeah.
imagine going through this with no internet.
Yeah. Oh my
You
God.
want to see the world go into
I went
chaos,
around
the
the
internet
world.
goes down, forget about it. It's all over.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
went
for
to
sure.
Woodstock. Okay, I went to Woodstock. There was no phone. There was no email. It's like, but we found each other. Go figure,
Going to Cuba for me was tough enough. Okay, I'm like, I love Cuba. It's like you gotta go.
Know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So it
Yeah.
happens slowly. But I think back at 1918. Geez,
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I mean-
Esteban, how about you? Have you given much thought of like how maybe you have to revamp yourself or how the future looks? Or
I think the only thing I think about now, it's like the next time I'll do a trip, I will enjoy it like as never before, no matter what it is. And I think about what is going to happen with our industry is that it will become more like globalized than it was before. Like, as I told you before, I think these kind of things, like conferences, festivals, or you name it, will keep happening like this, and we will have like this option to go, like, like have like a physical festival or do like a physical photo shoot, or maybe you just go and do something like what like what Gail is saying. And I think it's amazing because we are creatives, no matter if we're photographers or filmmakers or artists. We are creatives, and that thing I think really push us to do some new stuff. And I think it will open new markets for people. I am really positive about future, even though like right now it looks really, really like dark.
Yeah.
So
I have a couple more end questions for you guys, and I knew that we would be having this conversation and could continue for hours with you guys. I had no doubt about that. If there's anybody out there that wants to throw a question before I get to the final questions, please use the Q&A right now, and we'll get those questions out to our guests. One thing is I want to ask is, what do you find yourself missing the most right now?
Gail, please.
Going somewhere.
Yeah.
Getting on a plane and going somewhere. Really,
Yeah.
I do miss that. If your China trip wasn't signed all full, I might be signing up for that. Esteban.
You and me both, Gail. I already claimed the first dropout slot. So
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're totally welcome to join me. I mean, yeah, I think the same as Gail. Like, I really miss to be in an airplane. You know, I feel I have been thinking a lot about this. It's like I get used to being in an airplane, so I wasn't excited anymore. So I was like, you know, another airplane, what movie I'm going to watch? I'm going to sleep. Oh, that awful 12 hours trip. Now I'm like, you know, I can wait to be sitting in an airplane looking through the window. Like, you know, like those things, I really miss them a lot. And be able to, just discover our planet and just have that feeling of having your camera, having the, you know, this amazing light, everything is working, and you just press the shutter and you got this amazing picture, and then you lay on your bed like, I did it. It's like, I really miss that feeling. I really miss it.
Smiles too. You know?
Has there been something throughout this that you're going to come out of this looking at differently? Because I mean, certain things like you think about, like before, I used to love going to the movie theater. I'm like, I on an opening night, sitting next to tons of people and having that group feeling of laughing or crying or the emotional shared response, or a concert that were packed in your, you know, sardines, and like, I can't imagine that at this point right now. I know we'll probably get back there, but right now, and also like, you know, simple little things like, hey, you know, we're all having a big birthday party. That person's actually going to blow and spit on a birthday cake, and you're going to eat it. Like, wait a minute, that's okay. That seems like an old custom that we shouldn't do anymore. Shaking hands, like, is there something like you like right now that seems like, you know, 8 weeks ago you didn't even question it, that now just seems like, oh, geez, bizarre to you?
Yeah.
For me, I might not eat meat. You know, just because it's like, oh, with the meat.
Did you see Wendy's is running out of hamburger at their fast food places?
Yeah. On the other flip side, you know, I had tickets for Jackson Browne on June 16th, were postponed, but I can tell you when it's happening again, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Proud or not, I'm gonna go.
What is, if everything went back to normal, what's the one thing you miss that you would want to do? Like, it's all open back up. What's the first thing you want to rush out and do?
You're asking me? I definitely like, I mean, like, I'm definitely dying to go to Russia. So it's something, it's probably the
next plane to Russia.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah. I'll be the first one there, and you know, it's something I really want to do. It's also because I have a project there that I want to explore about some community there that I've been really interested in. And I mean, I think it's just that. And you know, it's like I really miss, like, especially in Colombia, we have this tradition of hugging each other, and you know, we really touch each other. So we were like, you just come like with a hug to say hi, and you know, like we used to kiss a lot, like, mwah, hello, how are you, stuff like that. I don't miss the kiss part. I never like it anyway. I think it's good, but I really miss like
a good hug. You can't
a good hug from your friends, and don't be afraid to hug someone. So as I know I can do it, I will do it to as many people as I can.
It's sometimes these simple pleasures. Like there's a sushi place I've probably been to more times than any other restaurant in Rhinebeck, New York, and they've been closed since the start of this. And Wednesday they opened back up, and I sent a message to the owner, and I'm like, can I call in my order right now? I will be there at 11:30 on Wednesday, and I was there 11:30 on Wednesday. I got my sushi, and I was so happy. It was like it was such a great thrill to have that food again. Gail, what about you?
Well, I'd probably go into and I'd go to MoMA because I missed the Dorothea Lange exhibit, unfortunately. And then I would probably go and take a walk on the boardwalk at the Jersey Shore on a Saturday night. Take off from Bruce
Yeah,
Springsteen.
we did have a question that came in, and it's to both of you actually. They said to Gail and Esteban, I've noticed lately that there's a distinction between being called a travel photographer and a journalist who covers news and events around the world. Do you travel just to take beautiful shots, or is there a social political view to what you shoot?
Well, for me, I would have to, like I said, I've been more of a soft traveler. I've never really felt like a journalist. That's not to say that I haven't found my way into situations like that, like my daughter and I, we were in Istanbul and we came out of the underground and we were literally in the middle of a protest. And my instincts made me go running toward the protest. Her instincts made her go back and lean against a lamppost. And when it was all kind of finished, I looked back, I'm like, where's my daughter? And she was standing there. I said, oh, I'm sorry. And she said, don't worry, Mom, I was keeping an eye out for you. And I'm like, so she's the sane one. But no, I've always had more of a softer look at the cultures myself. Yeah.
For me, it's little things like just getting together with family. I mean, you put this forward a couple months, and it was, say it was in November or something like that, and around Thanksgiving time, it's like we couldn't actually, if we were all separated, we wouldn't be gathering for meals, or we wouldn't be, it's like, it's very weird. My mother's in Florida right now, and she usually goes down for the winter, and she's not in New York, and like I cannot see her right now. If you go to Florida, you have to sign that you're going to be there self-quarantined for 14 days. So we're separated now, and it's strange to have family in all different places and not able to be together and share moments like that. One of the last questions I always ask people is, what have you seen in the last week or two that has brought a smile to your face or made you laugh or given you hope? Has there been a moment? For me, it's always been, that 7 o'clock cheering for the workers. But this week it was the sushi. The sushi made me really happy. Has there been a moment or something that you've experienced or seen someone's artwork, or, there was you'll see these people reading beautiful poetry or taking a moment to sing out a window. Has there been something for you that just like, there's hope for humanity, I'm going to be okay?
For me, it's music. It's seeing these ensembles, whether it's a choir or the New York Philharmonic on Zoom. I mean, for me, that's like, wow, very inspiring.
Yeah. And
for me, it was, I have always admired Jimmy Nelson. I don't know if you know this photographer.
No.
And he just did a live stream on Instagram last week. And what he said was so inspiring that I just felt like I want to travel again after this talk, after what he said, after how he feels, how to approach people and how to approach the communities he photographed. And it inspired me a lot. I felt so full of energy and love about what he said that then I realized how important are, like all these live streams and all these things, because I felt like that made my day. I was really happy. So that made me smile.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, there's, and we have to keep looking for the positivity and the hope, and keep plugging on. Right before we wind up with the last couple of things, I just want to say next week, I'm really looking forward to having a couple new guests on. They're fantastic. They're both actually not really photographers there. Well, Frank Mio is a rep, and Annika is a producer, and they're fabulous. But they're part of the artistic community, and their voice and their work with photographers, I think, is going to be really a different kind of slant and very important.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a lot to say. So I'm really psyched to have them on. And also, as chairman of APA New York, I want to say thank you to APA for providing a community to people, and we're there for you, whether you just want to talk or anything like that. And please reach out and subscribe to us on YouTube, because you can watch all the past episodes and what's upcoming, and your likes really kind of help us and make comments. And please reach out to me if you have any further questions, or you just want to say hi, or if you want to have say, I got a guest, that would be fabulous, or you want to say, why don't you discuss this, or why aren't people discussing this? I'm easy to reach at chairman@apanewyork.com. And if you go to our website, you'll have all these links. And also we try and put up other people's blogs and information and other shows we're doing, and information of what's going on in the community. So those are all wonderful places to look. Guys, where do people find you and your work?
I have some links, but how would I post them?
We'll post those up for you, and but you can just say them out loud right now, and then we'll post them out.
Okay, well, probably my most current place is to find me on Like a Woman. So it's likeawoman.us, and that'll bring you to the website and an introduction to some of the women in the film.
That's wonderful.
So you can track me down. That's the easiest way.
Yeah. And Esteban, for you?
Yeah, I just wrote it in the chat, but it's Esteban Toro M, and that's my website too, that you can check some of my work, and you can see the China video too.
So if a photographer was crazy enough to enter this world right now, what advice would you give them?
Be patient.
Yeah. I would probably tell them to diversify and be open to different opportunities that you might have not thought about, because sometimes the mistakes have been in my life have led to the most fulfilling experiences. So.
And I want to add to that I said being patient, because photography is always about being patient. Like Gail just said it, like she wait for
days
in one of your photographs. Yeah, you wait for days just standing there, and photography is always gonna be like that. Like, yeah, and get used to frustration. Like, yeah, we cannot go outside now, but yeah, you can be outside and you can not get a single picture in 1 month that you're traveling because you had bad luck, and then you have amazing pictures. It's always about that. So we have to get used to it, I think.
Before I knew I even wanted to be a photographer, I as a child, I loved National Geographic. I'm like, oh, I would love to be like, out, in safari shooting the wildcats and stuff like that, until I realized what they're actually doing to get those shots of sitting in a shed for 3 or 4 days. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have
and
that
even
kind
years.
of patience. I don't have that kind of patience. I can't do it. So, and I also thought like, oh, wouldn't it be great to be a war journalist and be like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, no, it wouldn't. You need to be a special kind of person to do that. They have bullets whizzing by you and explosions. And it's like, and my heart goes out to those people. And I want to thank you guys so much for being here. You've been wonderful, wonderful guests. And is there any kind of last parting words that you want to give? Because I know I've asked certain photographers always, like, sort of whether it's a mantra or a piece of thing that they repeat to themselves or wake up with. And one of my early guests said, and it's resonated me since, is when you wake up, create before you consume. And I thought that was a beautiful thing, because we're so quick to grab our cell phone and check our email, to take a moment and do something for us and to create or do something. It doesn't even have to be, break out the camera. It's just to do something that is not that consuming mass thing. Is there something for you guys that you say, well, on an end note, this is something that my dad told me, or a photographer told me, that, it's a beautiful piece of parting piece of wisdom.
I would say stay curious. And my father told me when I was afraid to do something, he would tell me, what's the worst thing that could happen? And when I thought about that, I could never think of anything all that bad,
Yeah. I think never be afraid of rejection. You know, I think that makes us more powerful. What's the worst could happen? You could fall off a cliff or get hit by a train. But yeah, but no, don't be fearful to take things outside your realm of comfort. And I think that's the most important thing. And I know that's what you're saying, but I don't recommend getting on train tracks and stuff like that. How about you, Esteban?
I'm surprised my father said that to me.
My dad's quote was, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger."
Well, you know, I have been discussing with friends, and it's like we all have to accept that we have like some bad days during this time. So it's not bad if you just wake up and you feel you don't want to do anything. Don't feel guilty about it, because many people it's feeling guilty about, like, you know, like it's been a week and I have been like just watching movies and eating and doing nothing, and it's okay. I mean, we're in quarantine. We're not in a contest of who's gonna become the best photographer or whatever in this time. It's like if you don't feel it, just go with it and accept it, and don't blame yourself for it. Just appreciate it. We have an amazing time to staying home and just do nothing, and that's okay. I'm feeling sad and crying, and call your friends, call your relatives, or just be isolated if you want. Like, do what you feel you have to do. Just follow that. If you feel one day happy, just enjoy it, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's very important. What was that, Gail?
I said, I like that, Esteban.
Yeah, I think it's very important to do that. But at the same time, you know, don't let yourself become a couch potato, you know, because it's very easy to say, you know, I'm not showering today, I'm not doing this, and let yourself go. I think it's very important to recognize your feelings. Like, I hid from the demons and didn't talk about it, and didn't say I was getting scared, and didn't say I was putting on the brave face and saying, you know, like, oh, everything's going to be fine. But deep inside, I was like, oh, shit. And it's okay. And you need to talk about it. So no matter who they are, reach out and just say hi to someone. Pick a different person each day. Make sure they're all right. Even the ones that you think, oh, they're fine, they're probably the ones you actually really need to reach out to. Because the ones that are always putting on the brave face are sometimes the ones that need it the most. So reach out, say hi to people, make sure that you're okay, that you're emotional things, and don't hide from it. Talk about it, talk to other people. We're a big community. We're here to support each other. I want to thank you guys so much. And I can't wait to give you all big hugs when I get to see you and go to China and shoot wonderful things with you. Thank you so much. We'll see you next Thursday for Open Talk. Guys, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Esteban.
Bye-bye.
Bye.